Hey guys, so I did it. I'm actually back with another ARC review for today that I am so excited to tell you about. Oh my gosh, I've just been having really good luck with these romance novels that I've been picking, and I just can't wait to tell you about this one. So today I am doing an ARC review of Let's Make a Scene by Laura Wood. Now, I would like to direct you to a previous Laura Wood review that I did on her debut adult romance, Under Your Spell. I reviewed this last year. This one is a rock star romance, and I was so in love with this book because it took the rock star romance and it was very different. Like, it was a very different spin on it. And it just felt really refreshing, and I really enjoyed that. So I would highly recommend, if you have not read that one, to check that out. You, however, do not have to have read Under Your Spell to enjoy Let's Make a Scene. This is considered more of a companion novel than another book in the series. I actually had to go digging to try to remember who this character was in relation to that first book, because I just could not remember. And the reason is because she is a more, character who's kind of orbiting the outside of the story, and she gets her own book here. So you absolutely do not have to have read both books, but I did enjoy both of them, and so they're a really good one to pick up. So Let's Make a Scene is the story of Cynthia and Jack. Cynthia is the character who is related to the story in Under Your Spell. She was a old girlfriend turned friend of the male main character in Under Your Spell, who kind of shows up to support him in a couple of parts of the book. And so this is her story along with Jack. They are both actors. They both starred in basically, it wasn't the first movie for Jack. Jack is the son of two Hollywood luminaries, or big screen luminaries rather, since they're both from London and England. But he is basically, movie picture royalty, and he is trying to make it out on his own, and so he's done some stuff prior to this. For Cynthia, when she does this movie, it is her first thing ever. She was chosen out of an open audition after the person they had originally booked as the female lead of this movie ended up having to pull out, and so she's very green and nervous and scared, and just wanted movies to be her life, but this is like her first real step in doing that. It's kind of hard to know where to start the summary for what this book is about, because this book takes place on two timelines. And so the actual opening of this book is set 13 years after Cynthia and Jack did that first movie. And Cynthia has recently had a scandal about a different relationship blow up in the media. She's kind of had like a picture perfect image in the media up until this point, these 13 years that have seen her rise to a movie star of many, many different awarded, like she has an Oscar, like Golden Globes, like, I mean, she's done really well for herself. But she's always had a really like kind of picture perfect image, and this scandal with a previous romantic partner has really thrown her reputation for a loop. She is dropped from the movie that she is supposed to be starring in. So her agent comes to her and says, hey, the people who made that movie that made you famous 13 years ago, which was a Regency England era romance drama, want to make a sequel. And you would reunite with everyone in that cast, including Jack, who she hasn't spoken to in 13 years, because they did not leave that shoot on speaking terms at all. So the two like timelines of this book are basically 13 years ago when they were originally shooting the movie, and what happened then, and how, Cynthia and Jack's original relationship kind of progressed, and then it's flashing backward and forward to 13 years later when they are filming the sequel, and it also does alternate in POV from Cynthia and Jack's point of view. I love me a good second chance romance, and what I appreciated with seeing the 13 years younger Cynthia and Jack is you really see how like they were both in a position where Jack was like feeling a lot of pressure from his famous parents that he wasn't performing up to their standards, and he was just feeling really pushed by them to do things that just weren't fun, that he was having panic attacks, that he was very nervous, and how a lot of that kind of came out in the filming in ways that Cynthia just really didn't understand. There certainly is an immediate kind of bomb in their relationship where she overhears Jack saying that she really shouldn't be on this project and may need to be replaced, but it is also because Cynthia has just bombed the first table read. And so Jack, who has a lot writing on this movie, is like, I don't know if she can do this. And so you kind of just see how, you know, between their own baggage and they like the weight they're putting on this movie and their fears about themselves, and then there's like this clearly simmering attraction but also like personality kind of like conflict that they don't know what to do with. They're too young, they can't like emotionally intelligently deal with this. There is a prank war at one point, which is really wonderful, that of course kind of moves up towards like an icy professionalism once they like really start getting into it. Flashing forward to, 13 years later, where Jack in particular has really done the work. He has kind of realized that he's never going to make his parents happy, and he instead is doing stuff that makes him happy. And for Cynthia, who is going through it, because this is the first time in her career where she's really having that panic about like, is my career going to continue? Have I blown it all? While also like, being in the proximity to Jack, but also the studio tells them that they think that it would be great if they were in a fake relationship. And really having to be in proximity to Jack while dealing with some very serious trauma. It does have themes of the Me Too movement, of being like psychologically abused really by the co-star in her previous movie, and kind of learning to kind of work through that, and to be able to trust anyone, and most importantly herself. I don't know that we needed as much of the 13 years earlier plot as we got. It certainly didn't go back and forth every single chapter, but at the same time I felt like a lot more of the emotional work was being done in the 13 years later section, as Jack and Cynthia are really for the first time like confronting how kind of childish and kind of what was unsaid between them, and really thinking through and apologizing for the way that they acted, and trying to be better. And so it just really felt like there was more interesting like emotional work being done in that section, which is why I like second chance romances, because of that. And then flashing back to the 13 years earlier, which does give us more context about like how they kind of went from A to Z in this case. But sometimes I was like, no, the more emotionally interesting stuff is happening now in the present, and I kind of wish we could stay here and give this a little bit more space and time, because it's also the harder work, and the deeper like emotional work in their relationship is being done here. But that being said, it was really funny, as was Under Your Spell. It made me laugh, and that's not always easy to do, like out loud multiple times. Lauren Wood has an incredible sense of humor that always really comes out in these books that I really appreciate. And like I said, this I think one of the first things Jack says to Cynthia, or at least one of the early on things that he says when they come back together 13 years later, he's like, listen, this needs to be different this time because we need to communicate. which was really wonderful. And that's what I said, like, about like that part being more interesting, because they're like committing to communication, but it's just really hard for them, as opposed to some romance novels where they just like really can't communicate, even when it's pretty ridiculous. So I really appreciated that about this book. It has a wonderful cast of side characters. There is this incredible found family that, you know, you see starting in the 13 years earlier chapters, and 13 years later a lot of the characters that you really love are still there, and they all come back together to make the movie. And I was like, I loved them just as much as I loved like our focal pair, which was really awesome. I have touched mostly on the relationship stuff, but there is stuff with Jack and his parents, and, you know, Cynthia, and this thing that has happened with the psychological abuse, really, that she has to come to recognize as such. So they each also have their own like emotional storyline that they're going through, which is also always a plus for me, because I don't want everything to just be about like whether or not they kiss. But again, I think that also goes back to my point about wanting to see more of the now chapters kind of having more weight in them. I don't know what the actual breakdown of the book was. For all I know, it wasn't 50-50 and there was more emphasis on the present day timeline in this. But again, I was just like, you probably could have taken some of that space that was given to this past, even if the prank war was funny, to deal with more of this in a, I don't want to say a slower way, but maybe a more complete way is a better way to say that. I think it's always great when you come out of a book and you're like, I just wanted more. I wanted more. And that is how I feel about this book, but I didn't feel like, oh, I wanted more in the sense that this book was disappointing. I loved reading it. It was a great experience. It was the type of book that I was just really excited to read. I read it all in one sitting. I just had to know what happened, and it was enjoyable and funny, and I really loved it. So this is an ARC review, but I always do my ARC reviews very close to the day that the book is coming out. So if you're seeing this book is on the day that it's published. This book is coming out tomorrow. So thank you to Edelweiss and the publisher for my advanced review copy. But if you are interested in getting a hold of this book, you can do so very soon at your local bookstore, local library, however it is you get your books. And if there is some sort of wait for this book, say a list or from at the library, you can also pop over to Under Your Spell. Theo and the female lead from that one, Clemmy or Clementine, does show up in one specific scene in this book. So you would have more context for that, but like I said, you don't have to do that. But they're both really enjoyable, and I would recommend them both as just a really funny, sweet, good time. So thank you very much, guys. Glad I have another review actually done on time, and we'll see if we can keep this trend going. Thanks, guys. Bye.